Hi, friends. Welcome back. We are ready for the final chapters of Bunny Double We're in Trouble. I am so excited to end this book because I've loved all of the mystery and suspense, and I can't wait to see what happens. The kids just found Boomer Wiggins in the Easter Bunny costume, and he ate all of the peeps. So let's see what happens now. Chapter 11 is called Thinking Outside the Box. We decided to leave Boomer alone and go back to the party so we could open our plastic eggs and eat the candy inside. But when we got to the lawn, the other kids were gathered around Mr. Klutz and Mrs. Bubbles. She was holding a big basket and it was filled with all our eggs. Hey, those are our eggs, I said. We found them. We're going to try something different this year, Mr. Klutz said. I'm going to open the eggs for you. But we get what's inside, right? Shouted Michael. Of course, said Mrs. Bubbles. You kids get the prizes. Mr. Klutz opened an egg. I thought a piece of candy was going to fall out, but it didn't. You know what fell out? A piece of paper. What? No candy? Each piece of paper has a question written on it, said Mr. Klutz. The first child to answer the question correctly will get a chocolate covered marshmallow bunny. A chocolate covered marshmallow bunny? Count me in. I love chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies. I looked at Andrea. Andrea looked at me. We both made mean faces at each other. There was no way little Miss Know It All was going to win the chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies. Okay, said Mr. Klutz as he opened the first egg. What is 7 times 8? 99, I yelled. Ha! In your face, Andrea. 56, said Andrea. Right, said Mr. Klutz. Andrea gets a chocolate covered marshmallow bunny. Oh, man, I shouted. No fair. Andrea went up and got her chocolate covered marshmallow bunny. Then she stuck out her tongue at me. Next question, Mr. Klutz said as he cracked open another egg. What's the difference between fiction and nonfiction? Nonfiction has no fiction in it, I shouted. It's like non-fat milk. Nonfiction is real and fiction is a made-up story, shouted Andrea. Right, said Mr. Klutz. He gave Andrea another chocolate-covered marshmallow bunny. Bummer in the summer. This game was no fun at all. Mr. Klutz opened another egg. What is above the United States? He asked. The sky, I shouted. Canada, shouted Andrea. Mr. Klutz gave Andrea another chocolate covered marshmallow bunny, even though my answer was just as good as hers. When did Columbus discover America? Asked Mr. Klutz. When he stepped off the boat, I shouted. In 1492, shouted Andrea. Another chocolate covered marshmallow bunny for Andrea. This was a dumb game. Where do we get orange juice? Asked Mr. Klutz. From the supermarket, I shouted. From oranges, shouted Andrea. She got another chocolate covered marshmallow bunny for that lucky guess. She had 5 chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies now. Nobody else had any. This definitely wasn't fair. Okay, you should get this one, AJ, said Mr. Klutz. What do they call the man who wears a striped shirt and a whistle at a football game? Bob, I shouted. The referee, shouted Andrea. She got another chocolate covered marshmallow bunny. It went on like that for a while. Mr. Klutz gave out all the chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies he had, and most of them went to Andrea. This was the worst thing to happen since TV turnoff week. Not only was Andrea getting all the chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies, but she beat me in the contest too. I was really mad. After it was all over, Andrea came to me. I don't even like chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies, she said. You can have mine, Arlo. Really? I said, taking the bag. Thanks. Ooh, Ryan said. Andrea gave her chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies to AJ. They must be in love. When are you going to get married? Asked Michael. I didn't like the gang teasing me, but at least I got some chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies, so I didn't feel so bad. You're really smart, Arlo, Andrea whispered in my ear as I was eating a chocolate covered marshmallow bunny. Your problem is that you think outside the box too much. Why is everybody always talking about boxes? And why is everybody thinking inside and outside of them? Chapter 12, Run for It. It was getting late. The servants started picking up the kites, hula hoops, and other things off the lawn. The face painters, jugglers, banjo players, and storytellers packed up their stuff to leave. The big lawn looked perfect for a football game again. Well, it has been a lovely day, Mayor Hubble announced. Thank you for coming to Hubble Manor. See you all next Easter, said Mrs. Bubbles. Ta-ta! People started making their way toward the driveway. Wait a minute, said one of the parents. We didn't find the golden egg yet. Yeah, nobody found the golden egg, said another parent. You said there are 10 $100 bills inside it, said a third parent. Did I say that? Asked Mayor Hubble. Well, I was just joking. That's right, Mrs. Bubbles said. The mayor was just joking around. He's always saying silly things like that. He's such a comedian. It didn't sound like a joke to me, said the parent. I'm not leaving here until I find that egg, one of the other parents said. That's when I saw the most amazing thing in the history of the world. Mayor Hubble took something out of his pocket like he didn't want anyone to notice. He was slipping it into Mrs. Bubbles' hand, but neither of them was looking down, and they dropped the thing on the grass. It was the golden egg. Mayor Hubble was going to keep the $1,000 for himself. What a scam! There it is, I shouted, the golden egg. The Hubbles have been hiding it the whole time, shouted Alexia. Run for it, Bubbles, Mayor Hubble yelled. Then he picked the golden egg up off the grass and started running. Get them, somebody shouted. Mayor Hubble and Bubbles Hubble were running across the lawn to where the helicopter was sitting. The mayor ran fast for an old guy. Mrs. Bubbles moved pretty well for a lady wearing high heels. The Hubbles were at the 20-yard line, the 30-yard line. Kids and parents were running after them. Some of them were throwing eggs, malted milk balls, and jelly beans at them. The Hubbles were at the 40-yard line. They were at midfield. The propellers of the helicopter started spinning around. They stole the golden egg, somebody shouted. They're escaping. Stop those criminals, shouted somebody else. Everybody was chasing Mayor Hubble and Mrs. Bubbles. They were at the 30-yard line, the 25-yard line. It looked like they were going to make it to the helicopter and get away. But you'll never believe in 1,100,000 years who came charging out of nowhere. It was the Easter Bunny. Boomer Wiggins in his Easter Bunny costume was dashing across the field at full speed. I never saw a man run so fast. Or a bunny. You should have been there. Just before Mayor Hubble reached the helicopter, Boomer took a flying leap and tackled him. A bunch of other people tackled Mrs. Bubbles. Ugh, Mayor Hubble grunted as he hit the ground. The golden egg slipped out of his hand. Fumble! We all shouted. A bunch of us kids pounced on the golden egg. It cracked open and the $100 bills went flying everywhere. The grown-ups were crawling all over on their hands and knees to get them. Somebody call the police, yelled Boomer Wiggins, who was sitting on top of Mayor Hubble. I'm innocent, I tell you, Mayor Hubble shouted. I was going to give you the golden egg, said Bubbles. I really was. Tell it to the cops, said Boomer. Hey, boys, we need something to tie these two creeps. Can I use your ties? Sure, we all said, ripping those dumb ties off our necks. Boomer used her ties to tie Mayor Hubble's and Bubbles Hubble's arms behind their backs. A few minutes later, a police car arrived with the siren blasting. Boomer told the police what happened. Good work, Boomer, said one of the policemen said. Have you ever thought about joining the police force? Come with me, Mayor, said the other policeman. You and your wife are going to jail for a long time. But, we all giggled because but sounds just like but, even though it only has one T. Grown-ups get mad when you say but. Nobody knows why. The policeman shoved Mayor Hubble and Bubbles Hubble into the back of the police car. Na 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 boo boo on them. Hooray for Boomer Wiggins! I shouted. He's the best Easter Bunny ever. He's our hero, shouted Alexia. Can I have your autograph? Asked Neil. Hip, hip, hooray, said Ryan. Hip, hip, hooray. After it was all over, we had a fancy dinner with ham, mac and cheese, poached eggs, and hot cross buns. Yum. It was almost as good as candy. Maybe Mayor Hubble will stay in jail this time. Maybe I'll start wearing a tie in case anybody needs to be tied up. Maybe Boomer Wiggins will stop eating junk food and become a policeman. Maybe next Easter we'll get some peeps and some real Chinese food instead of an egg roll. Maybe grown-ups will stop drinking coffee, standing behind podiums, and talking about weather all the time. Maybe Mr. Klutz will be able to get the dye off his head. Maybe people will stop walking into doors and climbing in and out of boxes all the time. Maybe Mayor Hubble will go to a doctor and try to solve his bathroom problem. Maybe they'll start making tuxedos for penguins. Maybe little Bunny Foo-Foo will stop hurting poor defenseless field mice who are minding their own business. Maybe I'll talk Ryan into eating a sugar-coated dirt clump, but it won't be easy. All right, and we are going to also read Professor AJ's Weird Easter Facts. Howdy, my weird school fanatics. This is your old pal, Professor AJ. Since I'm in the gifted and talented program at school, I know a lot of stuff that normal kids like you don't know. So na boo boo on you. Today, I'm going to tell you a bunch of stuff you probably don't know about Easter. Like this, for instance. Back in ancient times, when springtime came, cavemen would scatter colored eggs around so animals would come and eat them. Then, while the animals were eating the eggs, the cavemen would leap out with spears and kill the animals for food. That's how the tradition of the Easter egg hunt and Easter dinner got started. Okay, I totally made that up. Cavemen, Easter egg hunts? Man, you'll fall for anything. I bet that if I told you the Easter Bunny came from Mars, you would believe it. Don't believe everything you read just because it's written in a book, especially if it's written in a My Weird School book. But here's some real true stuff about Easter I found by spending 1,100,000 hours doing research. Okay, I typed Google. Fact: the day of Easter changes every year. It always falls on a Sunday between March 22nd and April 25th. If you ask me, Easter should just make its mind up, like Christmas. Christmas is always on the same day, December 25th. Easter doesn't even know what month it's in. What a dumbhead. Can you imagine if your birthday was a different day every year? That would be weird. Fact: Americans eat about 7 billion pounds of candy every Easter. And that's just in my house. We eat more candy on Easter than we do on Christmas. We eat more candy on Easter than we do on Valentine's Day. The only day we eat more candy is on Halloween, the best day of the year. Fact: Peeps were invented by a guy named Sam Bourne in the 1920s. The sign on the store where he sold them said, "Just Born." Every year around Easter, Americans buy more than 700 million Peeps. That's a lot of Peeps. I think I ate 7 million Peeps last Easter. I thought I was going to die. It was the greatest day of my life. If you think 700 million Peeps is impressive, every Easter we eat 16 billion jelly beans. Wow! If you took all those jelly beans and put them in a line next to each other, do you know how far they would reach? Me neither, but that would be a really weird thing to do. Anybody who lines up jelly beans has too much time on his hands. Fact: if you want to dye your own Easter eggs at home, all you need is half a cup of boiling water, a teaspoon of white vinegar, and about 20 drops of food coloring. Oh, and there's one more thing you need: eggs. Fact: the first time in the history of the world that the Easter Bunny was mentioned was back in the 17th century in Germany. So the Easter Bunny is over 400 years old. Wow, that's almost as old as my parents. Fact: the first White House Easter egg roll was back in 1878 when Rutherford B. Hayes was president. He was also the first president to use the telephone. Do you know what President Hayes said during his first phone call? He said, "Is this the police? Come to the White House right away. There are a bunch of people rolling eggs all over my lawn. Get them out of here." Fact: according to the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest Easter egg in the history of the world was over 25 feet high and weighed almost 9,000 pounds. If you think that's big, just imagine the size of the chicken. All right, and that is the end of our book. I hope that you really enjoyed Bunny Double, We're in Trouble.